Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Picture This, a Big Brother Hometown's retrospective podcast, Season 5, Chapter 2. Everyone in this house is dumb. We are back to wrap up Season 5 and also subsequently wrap up Volume 1 of the Picture This podcast series, which for Mitchell and I is very exciting at this point in history. It may be different depending on when you're listening, but like at this point in history for the two of us, we're excited that we get to finally bundle some of this together and send it out seasons 1 through 5 that we've been working really hard on for quite a while now. But not only that, but we are wrapping up one of the greatest seasons of BBH and one of the most fun post juries and charges to the end of a season that you can get. I mean, it doesn't get much better than all the things we're going to talk about in this episode. But anyway, I'm Josh, back with you again. This podcast is going to cover episodes 7 through the finale. So go ahead and watch that of BBH 5 if you haven't already. But I'm Josh, alongside Mitchell Stokes as always. Mitchell, how you feeling?
I'm very excited, and I just firstly would like to say to all of my haters out there, I'm here and you're not because you weren't good enough to get on this podcast, okay? so come for me.
I'm really glad you said that, and I'm glad that we titled this episode what we did because like it's time that we get the Greg story and the
Yeah,
completion of, or at least to this point, the completion of the BBH, the Greg Wells BBH story, the 2-season arc that's going to culminate in his victory in this one. And we're going to get to tell it because he gives us a lot of context. You get a lot of fun stuff from Greg. We were kind of dipping our toes into the Greg of it all not too long ago when he was HOH in the last episode of the podcast. But we're going to get confessionals from Greg, and we're going to get the moves that Greg made, and of course we're going to get his jury performance where he really ties a
is
bow on the whole
is
thing and gets him the win.
is one of the best jury performances, at least up to date in this BBH. But like honestly, just this is my favorite finale so far, and I'm gonna make a very bold proclamation that I think it's one of my favorite finales in the history of Big Brother Hometowns. Both Sarah and Greg are so incredibly strong. They give such thoughtful and great answers. The jury asks really good questions that I think help change people's minds, and there's definitely a world where Sarah is ultimately the winner here. I'm so excited to talk about that story as well because she really is the player of the season this season, and I'm excited to talk through both of their stories because I think they are equally valid and valuable. I am excited to talk about Greg because this is really where he turns it on, and he's really hungry for that win, and it's exciting to watch, and I am very excited to go through it.
Yeah, every time I watch this season, it catches me by surprise by how much fun I have watching it. And I'll get to that when we get to the end. But I'm really high on this season, just from a watchability perspective. It's really, really a lot of fun and really easy to watch. And
Yeah.
the stories just tell themselves. Like it's very rare that like you can just watch and see the stories unfold beat by beat in a way that a lot of seasons of BBH don't necessarily do as well because you do have so many people's different perspectives on so many different things going on. But maybe the storylines are just really clear of what was going on in the house. You have your two sides. That helps a lot in storytelling when the big narrative is kind of one thing. And yeah, and then you have the characters that bring it to life. So let's jump on in episode 7, and it starts with you get a little screen grab of what the twist was for this round. It was called the crate, and there was a secret power in the crate. And here's the behind the scenes. I had this idea. I don't remember how I had this idea, but I had this idea for it where everyone had to decide unanimously on someone to get this crate. And I did not have a backup plan. I just told them they had to do it. Like you have to pick someone. We're not gonna like do this. We're not gonna have a random draw. We're not gonna let you cop out. You have to unanimously choose somebody.
Yeah.
I maybe threatened something if you didn't, but I was just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do if you just say no. But you got to do it, and they did, and they played
Yeah.
along. Um, and there's a couple funny things from this story. Now, Bradley, obviously wins this, and he forces his will. He just like said, I am not going to sleep until you guys decide to give this to me. Like he was going to be annoying about it. But for whatever reason, it worked for him. It just was like it worked, obviously. Like yeah, I think it works either way. But the response from the house was like fun. And they like
Yeah.
look at Bradley being funny and just like not giving up on this. And like they it was endearing to them for some reason. Whereas someone like John, who was doing similar things or even maybe trying to help Bradley get it, was really irritating. Particular members of the house, especially Jeff, for some reason, he really this whatever John did in this like dialogue really upset Jeff. When in reality, like it wasn't much different than what Bradley was doing, but for whatever reason, Bradley just comes off better to people, and that's just the nature of Bradley being a better player. But yeah, so Bradley ends up getting this crate. What do you think of all this?
Firstly, I will be creating a mini or an org called the Crate. I think this is a fantastic twist, and I want to fashion an entire season of BBH after this twist. After watching it, like not even that we see the effects of it, just like my own brain is just enamored with the idea of it and all the different possibilities, whether it's a punishment, whether it's something good, all the different ways that it might inform gameplay, inject some randomness into the game. I think something like that would be really silly and really fun. And so my wheels are turning. Besides that, I think it's really funny that you have Bradley just grandstanding and I'm getting this until you give it to me. And I ultimately wonder, like, I'm pretty sure was Jeff the other person who wanted
I
what
think
was
so.
inside
That
the
Jeff was
crate?
also in the mix to get it at one
Okay.
point.
So like I'm curious how they came to this conclusion that Jeff was just going to give up because that doesn't strike me as the type of player that Jeff is as just like to like let go of that like obvious amount of control or power. I mean, he fashions himself the mafia boss. Like mafia bosses don't compromise. They don't give in. So I'm surprised that happened. I don't know if you remember how that happened, but I think ultimately it being a co HOH makes it really fun and definitely like shakes up the game a little bit in terms of it just not what's expected, and I think that's always a good thing for
Yeah, I think I'm always I always want to look at different ways that people can get HOH because and I understand the premise of the game is such that you win competitions to get HOH, but I think the bigger picture of Big Brother as a game is shifting power, and so you can like not manipulate, but like manipulate the situation to get different outcomes. This wasn't a competition in the traditional sense, but it was like it was a social competition of sorts where you had to convince other people to give it to you, and
right.
Bradley does it very well and comes off scot-free and heck even nominates Jeff after this. The one
Right.
person that was annoyed by it all by
Right.
John, Bradley gets it, nominates Jeff, and Jeff is kind of cool with it. Like for whatever reason, just really liked Bradley more than John at the end of the day. So anyway, that all plays out. That was like the night before what would have been touchy subjects. Sarah, we get a confession from her, feeling good about her position at the current point. To hear from Bradley, who won't nominate, says he won't nominate Max, and basically knows that Max or knows that
That John.
Allie. Well, I'll say that Allie wouldn't nominate Max as well. So like
Right.
that Max is not going on the block, but he has to figure out how to kind of maneuver John in this. Like, why am I not putting up Max? And this is like he's worried this is a turning point in the game, but I'm really impressed with Bradley for really just keeping this Max thing to himself.
Yeah.
Like they really are playing this middle of the two sides. He's not even telling John, his like lifelong best friend, like that he's not going to put like that he's working very exclusively with Max and won't put him up because of it.
Yeah. I think that's great. I want to quickly swing back to the what something that Sarah says in her
Okay.
confessional where she says, "I'm less paranoid and I'm more cautious." And I think that you're really starting to see this rise in confidence for her whereas like we talked last episode or that, she a lot of times was really the weight of the decision really weighed on top of her. And then after she made the decision, she was like, "No, this is the thing I did, and this is what I have to stand behind." I think now we're starting to see her be really confident in realizing her own power. She's gonna lose that a little bit when she gives a lot of power to Bradley later on down the
Mhm.
season. And I want to talk about that when we get there. But I think she here at the beginning of Jury, Sarah realizes this is her game. She's molding and she's moving and she's got influence on both sides. And I think you're starting to see that here because someone who doesn't realize that is always going to be paranoid. So for her to say she's less paranoid now, she's realized her position. She's realized that who's coming for her. Again, we said this
Right.
last time. Who is coming for Sarah? And I think she's starting to realize that, and it's really cool to see it. And it's really cool to see her ultimately get to the end and really stand behind the game that she played. And I think that starts here at the beginning of Journey.
Yeah, and you're slowly going to see Sarah that it's not just more confident in her. She's always confident in her decisions after the fact, like you said, but like ready to start playing for
Making
herself, as she
and
says.
and making the move that she knows is best for her game.
Right. Um, we get touchy subjects, which I'm glad I didn't have to dig up the answers because I said it in the episode, so we can just kind of talk through that real quick. There are some interesting things. The two that I find really fun, because people don't realize it, the deserves to win and the pulling all the strings both go to Ty, Max, and Bradley, who are
Yeah.
playing this middle, playing really well, kind of pulling a lot of the strings. Ironically enough, Max also gets no chance to win.
Right.
Um,
And
uh,
most deserving, which
and
is
most
weird.
deserving,
Like,
yeah.
it's so weird, like, that's the thing about touchy subjects, it's such a flawed, like, game in the sense that there's such a small sample size that there's usually no clear majority for a lot of things, and in a situation like this where you have sides, they're just gonna fire back and forth at whoever they perceive is the leader or in power or whatever, and it's just like, "Oh, well, it is what it is." It's a fun
Yeah.
game. It's a silly
Yeah.
game, right?
Um, so yeah, so I mean, otherwise we can run through these touchy subjects answers. Who do you trust with your life? They said Bradley. I think like people are playing on like the paramedic thing there. Who would you need to blindside? Max. That makes sense because he's winning all the competitions. Who is clueless? Now this is interesting. Greg. The meanest is Greg. Not an all-star. Jeff and Greg. So Greg is getting a lot of these negative ones, and he uses that as motivation and inspiration, as he says in
Right.
his finale speech. Who has lied to you, Allie? Who'd be the viewing party favorite? Max. Nicest, Sarah, Max, Allie. Yeah, and that's all of them. So no chance to win Max, Allie, Bobby. Interesting that Leighton doesn't get any of these accolades.
He's
But
again, who I mean, it is kind of the thing of like, you need to look at that person. Not that I'm gonna sit here and say that Leighton's playing a
right,
great game,
you're
but
right.
like if someone's so under the radar that their name doesn't come up at all during touchy subjects, that should be a red flag for you.
Here's
That
just
should be a
a
red
thought experiment. Like, um, you look at let's I'm like in BBH 13, you have an Eric Taylor who plays like not the greatest game. Like we've
Mhm.
talked about this, but he contextualizes it well in confessionals and
Yeah.
is a good confessional giver. And so when we get there, or even now, we can look at Eric's game and probably not like trash on it as much as
Right.
someone like you did in the real time.
Who did that?
And the reason I bring that up is hypothetically speaking, if Leighton and Bobby were great confessional givers and did this all the time, would we see their game in a better light?
I don't
I don't
know.
know.
Because I think like even though Eric wasn't playing
And
well,
that's just one example, of
yeah,
course.
yeah. For example, yeah. For example, Eric, he wasn't really playing that well, but he was playing.
Right.
And like and I give Bobby and Leighton a lot of credit for like playing harder this time, but they're really I can't imagine they were actually playing with like as much activity level as everybody else in this game.
Right.
I just can't. So I no, I don't think so. Like I don't think it would change for me. It would help me understand maybe some of the decisions that they are a part of or involved with. That would be great. I'd love to hear from them because they seem like fun people. They probably would be great confessional givers if they
Right.
tried, but I don't think it would help me have better context and think that they played better than, an invisible game.
Right. Yeah,
And
just
here's the evidence right here in touchy subjects. They're literally invisible.
right,
So,
right, yeah.
like,
That's true. So Allie wins the other half of the co-HOH, and she's feeling really good about her win. She won a competition. She talks about the crate and everything that went down, and she's like, "Yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world." She's like, "I'm safe. I'm at HOH with Bradley." Gives her an opportunity, like we've been talking about. She wants to find people. She has an opportunity to talk strategy with Bradley at this point. But they both also know that they're going to both nominate someone from the other side.
and
Uh,
they're okay with that.
yeah, and
Honestly,
that yeah.
they're like, you know what? It's fine. It's
Yeah,
like,
like that's what it
don't
makes
even
sense.
fight about it.
Yeah, well, it would be silly otherwise too, because like they don't want to jeopardize their own games
Yeah.
to like stick their neck outs for whoever, especially Allie going after Bobby and not John, and Bradley going after Jeff. I guess maybe she as a little would feel a little stronger if it was Max, maybe,
Right.
but she knows it is what it is. We cut to so those are the nominations, Jeff and Bobby. Sarah talks about that she's happy that Allie did exactly what she said she would do, because we've seen that Sarah is very leery of Allie, and maybe not even necessarily her word being true, but just her in general. And so this is just a nice little thing for her to be like, okay, Allie did exactly what she told me that she was going to do, which I guess good on Allie, telling the truth. Not that Allie's a liar; she's
Right. She's
generally not.
typically pretty straight up.
Yeah, unless she's like talking about where Max Parsons is in the world. Like, is he in Canada or is he in Australia? That's one point of, or is she dating him or not? But yeah, otherwise very straightforward and sits well with Sarah. Good. She is a bit surprised that Jeff put up or that Bradley put up Jeff and not Max, which once again makes perfect sense for us, but should be a little like, interesting,
Yeah. Totally.
suspicious, otherwise. But Bradley, being the good player he is able to kind of cover those tracks. However, it doesn't come back to bite him in any way. That's like, no one really puts that together, perhaps ever.
And honestly though, it should. Like it should bite Bradley in the butt more than it does, especially when he has to make a renom and he renoms Greg. Because
Right.
Sarah is sitting there saying, I think that maybe this is a backdoor play on Max. Like that
Yep.
would make the most sense for getting Max out because he's so good at the competitions. And then when Bradley has the opportunity to backdoor Max and doesn't take it, that should be a huge red flag for the
Yeah, as I was
players left
watching
in
this,
game.
as I was watching this, I forgot that this was that round that is Bobby versus Greg at the end of it. And I'm like, oh, Bradley did have to make a renom. He had to skate his way around this somehow. And he does. And like,
Yeah.
and
And we never hear about it again.
no.
Literally never hear about it from anybody else again. So, which is wild.
Yeah, so Jeff wins the veto, uses it on himself. Bradley puts Greg in his place. And now we get maybe weirdly enough one of the most important votes of the season, and you can tell because Sarah's the swing. The swing. For historical context, all of us, I don't know I don't think Bradley was there, but me and Sarah at the very least were there. We're all at Ian's wedding. Ian, two-time BBHer. We're at his wedding, and Sarah is just torn. It took a while that night and you can kind of see this because Jeff talks about it. It took a while for Jeff to get his veto decision in, even though like he was going to use the veto on himself. And so it took a while, and then Sarah really goes back and forth and back and forth. And I think the only way that we can contextualize this whole vote is to jump into episode 8, because we need to talk about Greg.
And we need to talk about the best move in Big Brother Hometowns history.
It is a great move. To say the best move is interesting. I'm
being facetious and I'm being like a little obtuse about it.
Sure.
Like, for fun, just like because it's great. It's amazing. It's an amazing decision, and it's even more contextualized by what happens directly after it,
right?
Which is
but
why
it also helps.
Amazing.
It also helps to understand everything before it, because for the whole time that we've been talking about Greg, we've been talking about like, is he with them? Like, where is he? And this tells us almost with absolute no doubt that he was kind of just chilling and talking to people and was not in any groups or anything. Because, okay, here's what happens. Greg, makes an alliance chat called The Other Side that includes Allie, Max, Jeff, Sarah, and himself. And he says, it is time for us to take control of this game from Bradley, from Bobby, from John, and Leighton. And let's take the numbers, our 5, their 4, and we have the power here. Save me, get Bobby out, knock one of their members out. Now, in this moment, like when this happens, I don't even think Greg is telling me or anyone quite yet that this is simply a move to save him.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's like it's the most logical thing for these people on the other side to do. Like, it makes perfect sense. Like, you finally can put these pieces together of the puzzle. Greg is just coming off of this round being told that he's not an all-star. He's the meanest and he's clueless. Well, he just shows that he's really clued in and makes this very, very smart looking, appearance of an alliance when he's just then eventually tells us it's just to save himself.
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts about this. So number one, I have to believe and I have to think. I'm pretty sure Greg had some idea of what the power structure was because he was connected to Sarah. Not as, I will say I think I was overestimating how closely they were like as a duo. They were working together, they had good communication, but they weren't like necessarily a duo like we would call Max and Bradley. And so
Sure.
I was making I think I was overestimating that in the previous chapter. But he is talking to Sarah, and I think that Sarah knows for a fact.
And they claim it at the end of being like a pairing, and it really does start here.
Yeah, Sarah knows about John, Bradley, Leighton, Bobby, and Max knows about John, Bradley, Leighton, and Bobby because, duh, of course he's gonna know that existed in season 3, and it's probably existing here in season 5, right? So I think Greg had more context to share than he is leading us as the viewer to believe. Number 2, I don't necessarily believe Greg that he said it was only a move to save him.
Right.
And that's because in the finale, he tells Allie, I was not going to put the 3 of you up until 10 minutes before the decision was made.
Right.
Because he was going to put up John, Bradley, and
Max.
Leighton.
I think it might have been Max.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't. Anyway, so he was gonna do something that. So I'm not 100%, in the camp of this was just a move for him to save them. Okay, I think what makes it great is that he's able to put it into context as part of his story, as I was playing my role as the villain and I made this alliance to screw you guys over, and then I did it the absolute next round.
Right.
I think that's what makes it great. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle, as it always is. But it's I think it's really, really, really well done on his part. And I think a lot of times the like Hail Mary save me group chat never really doesn't usually work out.
Right.
But I think, like you said, this makes sense to the players in the game. It makes sense. And Sarah's like you said, again, she's the swing vote. I'm curious, you were with her. What was she thinking? Because we get not 1, not 2, but 3 votes for her over the course of the evening. And she ultimately says in the finale that she talked to Greg more than she talked to Bobby. And she felt like her path forward was better with him as her, decision making. That was what made her decision for her. But what was it like in real time being there?
She went back and forth a million times. I guess now I realize that Bradley was not at the wedding, because had he been at the wedding, I think that
there's no way. Yeah.
I don't think she votes out Bobby, because at the end of the day, you have to imagine this comes down to her relationship with Bradley. Because you can tell by the way that she acts the rest of the way, that's one person that she still wants to like play with and work with, and knows that he's probably not going to turn on her. Whereas she has no issue cutting Bobby. She has no issue cutting even John or Leighton or whoever. But then Greg is like picking her up and making all these valid claims, like all these like good arguments, and she just is weighing these back and forth. Do I betray Bradley and go with Greg and this other side that really can dismantle a lot of power, or do I stick with what's been working in a sense for me with Bradley's side, take out Greg, and then continue aiming fire at that side?
Yeah.
And I don't know what the right decision is. I think
works out. I mean, it works out. Hindsight is 2020 typically.
It works out, but either way, she is like, at least for the subsequent round, she's choosing a side here.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel bad for her watching this, because once again, I watch this and she makes the decision and it's like, okay, I'm gonna vote out Bobby. We're keeping Greg in the game. Now, of course, if she takes Greg out, Greg doesn't win the season. So like, who knows what that means for the end game. But you know, that'd be tough to predict what could have happened.
Right.
But she votes out Bobby here, and then is just like, and I think moving on is important, because she desperately wants someone from the other side to win HOH, because of course she doesn't want to win HOH here. Like, because she still wants to stay in the middle. We get a confessional from Bradley that's really annoyed that Sarah did this, but like, it's still in like a, why'd you, like, I wish you hadn't made me look this way. Like, I wish you would have just told me, because then we can move forward from that. Like, whereas it's like seeming like Bradley is still okay with working with Sarah and like can understand what she was going to do in some way if he had just been told, or maybe given a chance to convince her otherwise. So Sarah really has no business winning this HOH. But the problem is it's C4 and no one on the other side is around to try to win. And now Sarah's like, crap, I can't let John or Bradley or Leighton win this, because if they do, they're probably, maybe not Bradley, maybe, but the other ones are certainly going to come after me. I should have gone back through the group me and seen who kind of was in the lead. Let me do that real quick. So yeah, I just looked at the scores for C4, and there was no real opposition. Max was scoring a couple points here and there, but Sarah blew them out of the water. Which is interesting. Once again, Sarah just like decides, like, I guess I'm just going to play this and win it because I know I can, and she does pretty handily. I don't know. I guess she, like she said, she'd much rather of Greg to have won this, or Allie to have won this, or I guess Allie couldn't because she was also outgoing HOH, or Jeff. But you know, if they're not around for a competition like this, she just decided to take it. And so, yeah, so now she's HOH, and now she's going to ultimately make her other big move here and go after John and Bradley. But before that, we hear from Allie that you can sense some relief from Allie that she finally has something, like just finally has like an alliance that's greater than just the three. Like
Mind you, yeah, like you're just about to say, greater than her alliance with Max and Jeff, which was very valid alliance, existed. Yeah. She was just not happy with it.
Right. And now she has Greg and she has Sarah, who she still doesn't really trust, but like, you know, with Sarah winning this HOH, she should realize that she's not going to touch the block in any way. And I watched this last night. I couldn't believe I didn't like remember this. I felt like I was like on the edge of my seat. Like, what is she going to do? Like, and she puts up John and Bradley. Like, she goes for it. She says, all right, I'm throwing myself on this other side, and I'm going after John and Bradley. What do you make of these noms?
I stand. I have no choice. Like, but it makes sense. Like, you just became a part of this, you know, this new group. She's accurate in deducing that John and Bradley will never pick her over each other.
Mm-hmm.
She knows that. Everybody in the game knows that. This is not a secret. Like, it's amazing that them as a duo were able to survive this long into the game. Like, you know, I can't fault her. And I don't think Bradley faults her either.
No,
honestly.
He doesn't.
Like, he's like, you know what? I get it. And which is amazing, because not every player has that, you know, that foresight within them that most people would view this as a direct move against them and come back with vengeance. And Bradley just looks at her and he goes, "You know what? I get it. Like you're
Yeah.
right. I would never pick you over John."
Well,
So
it Bradley just plays so well in this season. He just plays so
yeah,
well, and this is a perfect example because he can look at the situation and say, "Well, yeah, she flipped over and now she's coming after us." He can also look at the situation and say, "I'd probably survive this because I know that Sarah's probably more in my corner than John's. I
mhm,
know Max is in my corner, and that should be enough. And I've done a good job. Like I'm a better player than John, and they like me more than John. Jeff hates John. Uh, that's all you need. Like, it's pretty easy for Bradley to get out of this. Of course, he probably doesn't love being on the block,
right.
and obviously, in some ways, this could cost Sarah the game at the end because John doesn't vote for Sarah, which is still kind of baffling to me to this day.
Yeah.
And we'll get there, of course. But yeah, good on Sarah. She's ready. I mean, she's played her own game from the start. Sarah is a stone cold killer. Like, don't
Yeah.
get it mixed up. She
No.
has no business taking your favorites out. And I hope that one day down the line we get her back in the house because she's just very, very good.
I
But
think also too, Josh, I just feel this. She has done such a good job of playing the middle, and I would not be surprised if there is a world where she's kind of gassing up each side to go against each other. You know what
right.
I mean? Like if she knows that this side exists and she knows that that side exists, that like even when she's the person that has to rise to power and take the shot here, we see are going to see going forward that side still, the sides are still coming for each other before they're coming for Sarah. So she's really done a great job of her with her positioning so that even when she has to make this decision, it's not going to hurt her. It's not going to affect her game, and it's just incredible. Like it's truly just I feel like we're watching, like I said at the beginning of the last chapter, a masterclass in how to play the middle, and it's awesome.
Yeah. Then we get this really strange confessional from Greg where he says Sarah just made a stupid mistake. She should have put up one person from that side, one person from our side. And I just don't know. I think Greg's just kind of like in this string of confessionals where he's on his high horse a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's just I think that's it.
Yeah, it
So
makes I literally was so lost. I didn't even know like where to make heads or tail of that. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna ignore it. I am gonna move us to talking about just the single most villainous thing that we have physically in front of us that Greg is gonna do, and he's just gonna bait John and Bradley about
yeah.
the veto. And like, there's a difference between making a villainous move and just being mean. And this is just mean, and
Oh,
I
I think it's
live.
a lot of fun.
I
I
it,
think
it
I
is fun, but I live for it, even though it is mean. Like
yeah, I guess.
I
I think
almost expected him to do that thing where you like reach in your pocket and then you pull out the
your
middle
middle
finger.
finger,
Like
yeah.
that's what I was like expecting and waiting for. Like, oh, I'm gonna use the veto. Ooh, sorry, John. Like that's what I thought was coming, and it just like felt really. It was funny, and I'm sure it was all fun and games,
Yeah.
but it felt mean, and I was just like, I live.
So in the episode there are two different versions of this, and
Yeah.
the reason that there's two different versions of this is because when I was editing, I edited this season about a year or so after it happened, and I didn't have Greg's vote video, so I texted Greg and I said, "Hey, remember like that round where you pretended you didn't have the veto, blah blah blah." I was like, "I'm missing your vote video from that season to evict John," and he thought I was asking him to remake the finding the veto video. Um, and so he remade it. And I was like, you know what? It's funny both times. Let's just throw them both in. Like,
Yeah.
and if you're watching, you maybe just think, oh, he like had two takes of it and sent them both and told Josh to pick whatever.
I
Um,
was thinking too that it was potentially like he kept dropping videos of him pretending to use the veto in the meme chat
like
or
hundreds of them.
something. Like
Yeah,
yeah, there was like several of them, and you're like, all right, these are just the two that like this is
yeah.
what was going
No. So anyway, that is very fun, uh, and John gets evicted unanimously, as you could probably predict from what's been going on if anything, Bradley should go home here. But people vote with their hearts sometimes and their
Yeah.
emotions a little bit, and Bradley's the way bigger threat. Like I don't think that that's any shock to anyone. John, like I've said, John was playing for Bradley in a lot of ways. Wouldn't surprise me if John kind of laid down here
And
and
was
said
okay with it. Yeah.
and was okay with it. I don't think it mattered. Like I think if John fought for it, it wouldn't have mattered. I think John was going no matter what because he had rubbed people the wrong way, and especially Jeff and
Right.
Max was obviously already fighting for Bradley. So I don't think it was going to take much more than that to make it happen. All right, moving on to episode 9, we open with Allie basically saying she wants to bring Leighton to the end.
She's ready to flip. Well, I mean, listen.
So does everybody.
Right. So no, totally, absolutely. But like, let's think of context here. Like, we're at the point in the game where in season 4, Allie let Drew go, and where
Right.
which she views as her biggest mistake in season 4, and she, said at the beginning of this game, I'm not gonna put my alliance in front of me. I'm gonna play my own game. And so like this makes sense in terms of like given that context. What doesn't make sense about it is that she has no relationship with Leighton versus like where she had a relationship with Drew and Drew was like, "You're my final two, Allie." Like they
Right.
have no relationship. They don't speak. And she's just like she just wants to drag him to the end like a goat. Again, very valid. But you can't do that if he's not also willing to work with you. And I mean, it's ultimately not going to matter at all
Right.
how this what this confessional from her, but I appreciate that she's thinking about making a flip.
Sure.
And honestly, had the circumstances played out, this could have been a winning move for Allie to flip like this. She just gets ultimately hit by a truck here by
Right.
Wells. So
yes. So it's double eviction time. Greg wins Deal or No Deal here at the final 7. I always like some people have criticized that like I would do Deal or No Deal at this point at a double eviction because it's like, but I kind of love the madness of it because it's a bit random. It's a bit random, mostly luck, and like at the biggest point of the season. So like it really you have to rely on like your position more than your ability to win a competition.
right.
I don't know. I always thought that was a very fun place to put this. I don't know if I ever would put it that deep again though in this modern age, but I love it here. And it gives us Greg. And Greg originally was going to put up John or Bradley and Leighton and maybe Max or somebody like that. But at the last minute was feeling villainous and thinking through it. And he talks at the end about wanting to sniff out alliances. He has sniffed out the Jeff, Max, and Allie of it all, who may have honestly never had a full group message. They probably did, but they were always working together like we have well documented at this point. And he puts up Jeff, Max, and Allie. And I hesitate to bring this up, but I'm going to because it is important. Jeff does not take this well at all, and it gets ugly. It gets really ugly, and that's about as much as I'll say. Ugly to the point where like Greg considered walking from the game at one point, but everyone was running to Greg's side in this and defending him and saying like you're taking it too far, blah blah blah. But especially Bradley. Bradley was one person that was like ready to fight like for Greg just out of the goodness of his heart, and that is important. And I'll save that bit for later. That's all I'm going to say about that for now. So anyway, but he makes the big move. He does it. He puts up Jeff, Max, and Allie, and it's great. And his video is, I mean, you're seeing the villain back. This is season 2 Greg back, like again and again. He's like, let's see how this little alliance does while you're on the block, and he hits him with a wink. Like it's so good. It's so much fun, and it's another just stellar move that helps Greg get to the end of this game. And I'm just like, yes, Bradley plays a phenomenal game. Yes, Sarah plays a phenomenal game. But this game from Greg is just it's getting better and better for me every watch of it and every move and every round we get closer to the end here. That when we get to the winner rankings at the end of this, I'm gonna have a real hard time with where to put Greg.
I've been struggling so much trying to think through this, but here's the thing, right? Is that Greg, he did such a great job of controlling this villain. This villain has always been inside of Greg.
Oh yeah.
Whereas he came in at season 2 and was, like, committed to playing the villain, and it ultimately got him in a lot of trouble. He comes back and he says, "I'm still a villain, and I'm gonna get you, but I'm gonna do it smarter, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna work harder, and I'm gonna do more this time to make sure that when I hit you, that it's impressive."
Yeah.
Right?
And
And, like, he has kinda been like a little lamb, like, he's been like a little toddler, having little temper tantrums that are, like, funny and, like, mixing it up with people in the house, but he's not done anything truly villainous. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's like, "I caught you sleeping. You thought I wasn't here, and remember that alliance we just made? Get on the block."
right.
And it's so and the reason why it's good is not because it's villainous. It's good because it re-ingrains Greg back in with the Leighton and Bradley of it all, because now they feel very positively
Right. Right.
about this.
And that now they can enjoy the villainry even more because
Right,
it's been aimed at them for so long. Now it's
right,
aimed at the other side, and they get to pop the
right.
popcorn and watch.
And it's so visible.
Yep.
That's what's important here. And it's so I mean, it's the HOH noms, right? But he uses it as a platform to elevate his game so that the jury who's there and the people that are still in the game are watching this and they're like, yeah, that was pretty cool. Like,
Yeah.
whether it affected you negatively or not, that was pretty cool.
If Greg ever gets topped as the top villain of BBH history, like I don't know what that would mean. Like who would have to like we could talk about Lee as like a BBH villain, but like there's no one better than Greg.
No,
There
no.
isn't. Like we can talk about Steven maybe in season 6, but there's others like here and there, but there's no one better than him. So I was thinking about this. Like one of my favorite types of board games are there's a like a genre of board games called engine builders, where basically you're working on something and you're building it up, and eventually it's going to start working for you in bigger ways. And in some of those games, you can go for broke at the beginning and try and make those big moves real quick and do those really like flashy plays to score you a bunch of points while someone else is slowly building their bigger engine and their bigger machine to fire off at the right points. And that's what Greg is doing here. He's working in the background and building this engine. He's
Mhm.
calling Leighton's game calling his game trash and like building up his villain engine, but he's like making nice with some people, and other people are firing off big shots, my random name generators and my temper tantrums, and I'm gonna grandstand for the crate, and I'm doing all these things, I'm firing off, and Greg's just working, and he's just working. And then when he gets his big moments, he fires off this engine he's built, and it's sustainable, and it's just so good to watch.
And
It,
and how does he not get evicted after this? That's
yes.
the thing. He is vulnerable at so many points going
Yep.
forward, and he is still not viewed as the biggest threat left in the game, even after this this incredible move and this incredibly visible thing for the jury. It's he this again, I'm gonna use this. I feel like I'm overusing this word, but it is a masterclass in mitigating your threat level. It is a masterclass in taking the character that you've developed and taking your game style and diminishing yourself and elevating other people, but still like playing your game and
Yeah.
playing a good game. And it's just amazing. It's just I have so many positive things to say about Greg Wells in BBH 5.
Um, so Max wins the veto as he does, and
As he will.
yeah, as he will. And then Sarah, we hear from Sarah, who's just a bit paranoid. This is like a moment where she thinks it could be me going up. It wouldn't be. I don't know why she thinks that really, but she's just nervous, like as she should be. We're getting down to it here. Because Greg and Sarah have a good relationship. Greg ultimately puts Leighton up. Sarah was like big exhale, like really thought it was gonna be her. And then we
Mhm.
hear our final Alley confessional, which I deemed the roast of Leighton. On the title of it on the screen, you even see it, and she points out these 3 things about Leighton, and this will be Leighton's lasting legacy. Well, he doesn't go out here, but he will shortly. Leighton talks to Allie, forgetting that the veto winner doesn't decide who goes on the block. He thinks that Allie's getting a vote and hopes that he'll help or she'll help him stay safe, and also thinks that they can both stay in a double eviction.
And
and
and I don't feel like we need to say anything more.
no.
Quite honestly, like it. Yeah, like let's move on. Like because she said it. She said enough.
Yeah.
We don't need to move. We don't need to.
She calls him a dingus, and that's my favorite
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. And he is.
And he
So let's
is.
move on.
And he is. And she was right for that. Sarah talks a little bit about, for a second, that she prefers Allie to stay in the game. But that's never going to happen. And actually, so much happens in this round. Jeff basically says his goodbyes. He knows he's toast. But Sarah talks about basically trying to mend things with Bradley. And she has a confessional where she says, I think Bradley is going to go along with this idea that I have that I think is good for him. And here is the thing. I found it. I'm going to read it. This is what Sarah sent to Bradley. Because Sarah's like kind of like not groveling to Bradley, but like saying like, all right, Bradley, I need you. I know what I just did. I know, like, I just came after you kind of, but I need you to hear me out. Here's what she says. Okay, I'm just going to talk some things out and have to hope you hear it. I know you want me out. You have every reason to want me out, and I can't begrudge you for that. But I really think a final 2 or even a final 3 thing with us can really work. Somehow, Max has made it this far. I know you warned us from the literal beginning, and you were right. Honestly, if anyone has the capacity to be a 2-time winner of this game, I believe it's him. So I don't think anyone can count on taking him to the final 2 and winning. You've been working with Leighton, even if it's just for a few rounds. He'll follow what you say. It would be smart for you to keep him, but I know that you'd need someone else to vote that way today. I would totally like to be that person. That would give us the majority, and with 3 to get Max and Greg out going to the finals. I'm aware Max wants me out too, and this is a very much a self-serving move, but I truly believe it's in your best interest too. I hope that you can see how putting you and John up was a game move for me, and it wasn't one I made lightly. But on this side of it, I really, really think it has put you in a better position overall to win, and would love to take you there, and I think we can. So she's proposing this final 3 with Leighton and Bradley, which she doesn't see through to which she very well could have if she wanted to, but
That's
does
iconic
not.
behavior, though. It's iconic behavior. She's playing every angle. She's flipping back. The only thing I disagree with her in this is that she says that Bradley has the power. Bradley doesn't have the power. She has the power. She's the one who's bringing this to him. Like, we know Bradley's going to vote to keep Leighton. That's
Right.
obvious. Max is probably voting to keep Allie at this point. Sarah is in the middle. She has the power. So I really hate seeing her in confessional give up her own power a little bit and
Right.
say that Bradley's the person who's going to make this decision. No, I think she this is maybe an area where she could have done a better job with her confessional and said, I'm trying to give Bradley the option to go to the end with me. That's his decision.
Right.
His decision is not to save Leighton. That was going to happen regardless.
Right.
This is her move to flip back and to save Leighton. And we're seeing her again flipping back and forth to
Right.
play both sides, to play the middle, make very educated decisions. And that's only going to continue because she's going to have a lot of decisions to make going into down the stretch. I don't know how. Listen, I love Greg. I like standing here. I still don't understand how Sarah didn't win.
Right.
I do not understand because this is just she is making all of these moves. These
Right.
are all of her moves, and she articulates that at the end too. That's what will be interesting to get to when we get there. But I'm baffled, and I'm so impressed with her. I'm so impressed with her.
Yeah. No, she plays so well, obviously. Leighton does end up staying. Allie and Jeff are gone. And that moves yeah, see ya. That moves us into episode 10. Sarah some more talks out this final 3 idea with Leighton and Bradley. And then she wins HOH. So now she can see this even more through, and she nominates Greg and Max. Which is interesting because I guess, Greg probably wasn't, I don't know. If you're Greg and Sarah, the relationship clearly isn't so strong that like
They
this
won't
is
nominate each other.
yeah, right. And so the target is Max. Greg wants to take Sarah to the final 2. He says that because he says he can beat her. And then an interesting thing happens, and Leighton wins a veto.
Yeah. And this is I want to stop here for a second because this is a very important moment. This is the first round where Max has needed safety
Yeah.
that he doesn't win it. So if we go back this entire game, round 1 he's on the block and he doesn't win safety, but he stays against Quinn. From round 2 to 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 5 rounds in a row, he either wins HOH or veto. Okay. Then in the rounds after that, in 7 and 8, his allies are HOH, so he doesn't need it. Round 9, he wins the veto. And so this is round 10. So since round 1, this is the first time Max has been in like danger without a comp win, essentially. And he does what he failed to do. He does not do what he did in season 3 and win his way to the end.
Right.
And it's a very interesting story for Max.
Okay. So there's a lot to unpack on this particular vote because I have always said that I think this was a mistake for Bradley to take Max out at this point. Now, it could be revisionist history, but Max always says that he was willing to go all the way to the final 2 with Bradley.
Right.
I don't think it was long after the season that he said he was willing to do that because he really loved their dynamic and really just had so much fun with that alliance and all those things.
Right.
But Bradley thinks that he can't beat Max. I think that's the premise of him going against him taking out Max.
Max will go to the end with anybody because Max will win.
But I think Bradley beats Max easily in the final 2. I mean, you have Leighton and Leighton and Bobby, and you have
John.
Sarah and John. And that's 4 right there. And honestly, probably Greg as well. And Greg as Wells.
No, not it.
Oh,
no.
and you have Jeff. Jeff's not voting. Jeff's voting for Max. But I think Bradley wins at least 4-3 with those 4. I mean, you have your 3 dudes and Sarah, and I think that gives Bradley the win against Max. I really think that Bradley gets to the end with Max and he wins the game. And so the question is, could he have swung this for Max to be safe? Now, of course, this would have been going against this plan that he had with Sarah, and he seems to be like putting his loyalty there. So you can credit Sarah with this a lot. I mean, obviously it's her HOH, but
if he wanted to, he could have told Leighton what to do, and Leighton would have said, "How high do you want me to jump?"
I really believe that.
Yeah.
I think that it would have been confusing for Leighton, but I think he still does it. And you have to get Leighton on board. You can't force a tie here. But I don't think Bradley ever entertained it because I think he thought similarly to how he felt about Chris in season 1, where he had run that course as long as he felt like it could go.
Yeah.
Where in both situations, I think that Bradley's the better player in the better spot, not necessarily the better player in both of these relationships in season 1 and season 5, where if he rides it out a little longer, see how far this thing can go. You can hide behind Max's competition prowess and Bradley still probably wins, or at least Bradley gets a chance hypothetically if they were to get all the way to final 2. But yeah, I mean, Max, it's such an interesting game for Max here. I guess you can't call it the best of his 3 games, but in a sense you could. But it's not all that dissimilar. But the difference here in season 5 is that he's a victim of circumstance, not a creator of the circumstance.
Exactly.
Now I guess if you really want to go real meta narrative, he created that circumstance in season 3 that carried it over into season 5, but that's a little unfair.
Yeah, I think it's unfair. I actually prefer this game for Max.
Yeah.
Because,
do you? I mean, you said Quinn played better than Max in season 3, so
I did, and I stand by that. But I prefer this game for Max. Like you said, this was a response. He did these things out of response. But not only that, he showed the same ability to recover that he did in season 3. And I respect that. And yeah, it was really fun to have Max back, and we're gonna see him back again in season 7 where he's gonna go back to the old Max ways.
And
So
yeah.
as a spoiler alert. So
Yeah, I Max had to win his way to Final 5, and he basically does that, but it's what he does in the meantime. He doesn't just say, I'm just good. His game was not one dimensional, though they may have clipped him at any chance if they had the chance. But because they didn't, he took that to his advantage, got with Bradley. That saves him those couple rounds where he doesn't win anything. And maybe he didn't want to win things in those rounds finally. Like he didn't need to. So he finally took a break from it because he knew he was going to be safe. So yeah, and then you get the confessional from Max where he talks about he's really proud of what he did, and he should be. I mean, he's a former winner and he gets his way all the way to 5th place in this all returning season. It's super impressive, and truly, if Bradley thought to himself like, I think I need to ride this out, Max could have still been a 2-time winner, easily. I mean, it's Max we're talking about. There's no guarantee he's taking Bradley to the final 2. He easily could cut Bradley as he wins that final HOH and beats Leighton 7-0, and adds another 7-0 win to his resume.
And then I have no choice but to say nice things about him. So I'm really glad that.
Yeah. I mean, imagine. So yeah, that ends our Max story for this time around. A very fun one to track, and ends the Bradley Max of it all. Also fun to track, and they really played that very well. Maybe up until this point where they should have, kept it going a little bit longer, but who's to say? Sarah's happy the vote went how she wanted it to. Everything's going according to the Sarah master plan at this point. And then we get to the final 4, HOH, which I believe was What the Bleep, and Bradley wins it. Bradley, so this is another HOH on Bradley's belt here, and it's final 4. You always say the nominations don't mean much, but we also always say that they reveal, like, he puts up Greg and Sarah, obviously, the ultimately the final 2 of the season, puts them up, and then the power's out of his hands, and he can't win the veto for himself, which if he had, then if Bradley wins that veto there, I don't know what he does.
Yeah.
I don't know if he takes Greg or Sarah out. You can make a case for either. I think I lean Greg because of a little bit more loyalty.
I think so.
And like staying with that plan that Sarah has. But like,
and then Sarah wins the season. Bradley doesn't win, I don't think.
If it's Sarah, Bradley, because Sarah probably wins the final HOH again, and though part 3, you never know what happens. But if Sarah, it depends on who wins the final part 3. If it's Sarah, she wins. If it's Bradley, he wins.
She definitely cuts Bradley again.
Yeah,
and takes Leighton and wins.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But Sarah wins the final POV and takes out Leighton. To this day, it's a little baffling. I appreciate it. I
get it.
Why do you get it?
Because she's right. In the event that she doesn't win, it's hindsight to know that she ultimately wins the final 3 and takes Greg, right? Like that, we know that that's what happens. In the moment, I get it. The fear that Leighton would win or that Bradley would win and she would lose in 3rd place. This puts her in a situation to get to the end.
Yeah, it does.
You have to get to the end to be able to get. Yes, you have to get there with people that you can beat. And I think there's a case where Sarah could have beat both of them. I know that it was pretty much locked up for Bradley, probably had he made it. But
yeah,
I think there's a world where Sarah puts up a fight against Bradley as well. Like you have Max, Allie, and Jeff right there. That's 3. You just have to convince Bobby. You have to convince Greg to vote for you,
right?
In that situation. So I think it's possible that she could have done it. I get why she made the decision that she made. And it stinks because we know that she ultimately probably goes on to win final 3 HOH no matter what. And then she could have been sitting there with Leighton, but that's the game. So
yeah, and we're better off for it in a sense.
Absolutely.
We get a great, I mean, as strong as a final 3 as you could get here, with Greg and Bradley and Sarah. Yeah, I like I said, I get it in a sense. I still think it's the wrong move. You
Sure.
got it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But I get what she's saying. And she still almost pulls it off. And you hear me in the finale say that I thought Greg was going to run away with this,
Right.
which is interesting. I wonder I'm curious what my like perspective on the perception of the two of them was at that time. That's different than it is now. But obviously I thought that Greg was going to run away with it on the jury side, because I think the jury was just eating up everything Greg, and I wasn't sure that people like Max or even Bradley would vote for Sarah after, how she kept Max at arm's length and cut them and put up John and Bradley and all these things. And obviously we're going to get there. So we have our final three. Bradley choked in part 1 and 2. Ultimately, I think he like royally choked in part 1, because I think he like did something. It was like a endurance of some sort, like it always is. Sure. And he just made some kind of stupid mistake that cost him. But Bradley, we get sometimes in a finale, you get a couple confessionals before you hear from Sarah and Bradley before they're just preparing themselves for the end. Bradley is trying so hard to get Greg and Sarah to take him to the final 2. And you know what? I've been there. Yeah. I know that feeling. I know how hard that is. And especially when you are the front runner, it's impossible. Yeah. It's impossible. You got to win it. At the end, at a certain point, you got to win a competition, no matter how good. I mean, this jury
just got to not be the biggest threat.
Yeah, or you got to not be the biggest threat, and that's a hard. I mean, this game is not easy, and he tries very hard to do this. So we get to we're in the finale now. Sarah and Greg face off in part 3. I didn't think there was anything particularly interesting in the jury questions. And then Bradley tries to plead his case, telling Sarah, like, plays the, like, this is the difference in, like, I just saw a little, and I don't think this matters. Sarah's always cutting Bradley, so, like, whatever. But Bradley's like, let's do this. Let's, like, we said we wanted to go to the final 2. Like, let's actually do this. Yeah. Whereas Greg also says that, but also says, like, you beat me.
Yeah.
Like, if you take me.
I wrote, Bradley's pitch equals bad. Greg's pitch equals great.
Right.
like Bradley knew he was going out anyway, but like he didn't help himself here. He didn't do himself any favors, and Greg is still playing the game. Yeah. And as he should, because he thinks he can beat Sarah, but he just needs her to believe that she can beat him as well.
One thing to note here that it's this is why we do this for the exclusives. Only a few people know this. Now everyone's gonna know this. Greg considered throwing himself out of the competition at this point and giving Bradley a shot at the final 2. That's how much Bradley standing up for Greg when in the Jeff incident meant to Greg, that he considered throwing it and saying, I'm out. Bradley, you're gonna take the final 2 with Sarah. And he doesn't do it. Because, like, at the end of the day, he's like, no, I think I can win this.
Because he's a villain and he wanted to win.
Yeah, but, like, the true goodness of Greg's heart really considered giving Bradley the win, ultimately, here against Sarah, which I just think is a cool little note in history. I didn't find that out till way later. Like maybe, like, when I was editing the episodes, I think, and I was texting Greg about it. He told me that. And I immediately told Bradley, and he's like, you think this makes me feel better? So anyway, that's just a fun little thing. Sarah cuts Bradley and gives him a great line that she says, I don't have a chance against you, and Bradley's like, yeah, you're right. and she says, you're the winner of the jury's hearts, but you are not the winner in fact. Great.
Sarah that neck. She said,
she doesn't pull any punches. Like, she doesn't apologize for a single thing she does in this jury questioning. And maybe that's to a fault, but, like, she doesn't apologize to John. No. She doesn't apologize to these people she doesn't apologize to Bobby and Leighton. She's like, I did this.
John's vote is the one that he needs to get over himself.
Yeah.
And vote for Sarah.
He asks, so let's jump right into it. Let's just start with John, even though he's in the middle, because we're talking about it. Salty John is back. He asks the exact same questions that he asked in season 3. And he even sets it up in the exact same way. He says, all right, I'm going to ask the stereotypical questions. He says that in season 3. And the question is, why do you deserve my vote? Who should be sitting here instead of the other person, and he's 0 for 4 in people saying John.
Right. Yeah. No, it's amazing. It's incredible.
Even though he will always claim that's not what he was after, and maybe he was after them saying Bradley here. I could buy that. But yeah, like, and there's some fun moments with John because he asks Greg like, why do you deserve this, blah blah blah, and Greg is like, he starts throwing some shade. He's like, I didn't play wishy-washy like Sarah, and John goes, you just dodged my questions and put down Sarah instead. And Greg, like, if you go back and watch, it's a really funny little moment. No. Greg just laughs. He like has a little chuckle. He's like, yeah, that is what I did. And Sarah talks about trying to be as flexible and adaptable as he could, or as she could. And, and says some things like, I know it's ironic for me to say that I was trying to play straight up or honest to you. But then she was like, and then John's like, you're right. And Sarah says, well, I said it. And I'm not going to unsay it now.
Yeah.
Like, just like those moments.
And they have a relationship, right? They knew each other
of
from
course.
growing up. So like, and that's the thing that I ultimately don't understand here. Like, he knows Sarah. He knows that she's not going to apologize to him. Why is he out here like attention seeking and asking for an apology from her? You know what I mean? Like, when everything that she did was true. John, you would not take me over Bradley. True fact. Right? Like, I don't understand why he's out here trying to get this like apology from Sarah, because he knows he's not going to get it.
Yeah, no, he's not. So anyway, that's John. I mean, that's basically it. He's a little salty, or a lot salty, rather, a lot salty. And I can appreciate him voting for Greg.
Yeah, the merit of Greg's game stands on its own. But I just think like going into this, based off history, based off of game relationship,
how they played together, like all that.
Like, you would expect, even though she took him out, you would expect a player like John to respect the fact that Sarah took him out and vote for him.
And it's the difference between John and Bradley that we can talk about this whole time, where Bradley shows that he's a good player still, and is willing to put all that aside to still vote for Sarah, who moments ago took his dream of winning the game away. We don't really get Bradley jury questions. He kind of starts at the beginning like, I'm kind of done. He's like, I'm going to listen and I'll make my decision as I watch this. But anyway, back to the top here. We get Max, and he asks some good questions here. Basically, like, asks Sarah about the Leighton eviction, which we've already kind of talked about her answer to that, and she explains that, and Max accepts that answer. Asks Greg what his strategy was, strategy to lay low, how touchy subjects really helped him out, wanted to sniff out alliances, which has ultimately led to they both have their big move to claim, like, which is fun. Like, that doesn't often happen. It's like, what was your big move? And Greg can say, the double eviction. Sarah can say the John and Bradley nomination. Then he follows up with Sarah's like, why were you so cagey with me? And Sarah said, she doesn't really say why. She just says, I was like, I did do that, like, for better or worse. Like, I'm owning up to that.
She just owns it, which is a lot of times what the jury wants to hear. They just like, I just, kind of got at John a little bit for being out here seeking an apology, but like, Max is doing the same thing. He wants to be feel validated in
his read of the situation.
And feeling how he felt because of the way Sarah was treating him. So I can't, like, maybe I should walk back a little bit of how I was getting at John, but like, if I'm not going to do the same for Max, maybe I'll just be mean to Max again. I don't
know. Why change?
Why change? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Am I right?
No. Then, you get a surprisingly fun Bobby and Leighton jury question segment.
I have a hot take.
Okay.
This is where Greg wins the game.
Yeah, I can see that. Go spell it out.
They ask the very basic question: why do you deserve my vote? Why do you deserve our votes? Let's make that very clear. Our vote as a package duo, that you get 2 votes for the price of 1 here. Okay, so firstly, that's number 1 on the list. Number 2, I think Greg handles this incredibly well.
Yeah,
he says to them, and I wrote it down because he has 2 things that I think make his game make sense for the jury. Number 1, they ask him what his best move was, and he says, he doesn't say anything about, he does say the double at several points, but he says to them, I showed my patience. And I think that that was something that people maybe didn't realize that he was so intentional about in the pre-jury about all these silly little fights that he was having with them, calling them trash, like, and how he was just kind of laying in wait. And I think that he takes that and then he says to them, um, he says, I wrote it down. He said, "Our silly relationship informed my whole game."
Mm.
He said, "That was everything that I was doing to get at you, it was intentional and it affected my game because I had a someone to go after. You were important to my game.
Yeah.
You guys, you
He,
two
he
young 20-something-year-old little college boys, I'm speaking to you right now
yeah.
into your heart. You were important to me."
Yeah.
And they were like, "Great.
They ate it up.
An
You could
adult
see
sees me. An adult."
they ate it up.
Yeah, and that is and that's ultimately, I think that's where Greg wins the game. And it's not to Sarah's fault. I don't think she loses their vote on this question. I think
Right.
Greg just he is a pastor. He knows how to speak to young men. He
Yeah.
knows how to speak to teenagers and college students. He hits them right in the heart.
Yep.
Right in the heart of their, like, maybe their,
And he like he talks about the villain thing, like
yeah.
he's like the whole thing. He's like, it was all game. I was just playing this role and I was doing this thing, and that's the basis of his whole argument, his whole case here that he's building is I played this role really well. And Sarah sometimes uses that as ammunition, like I didn't have to play a role. I mean, that's back in the John thing where John says, well, everyone plays a role, but like then it's like, well, I didn't have to play a character, and
Yeah.
and that's valid as well. But Greg really does build up like I needed you guys to
Yeah.
be that foil for me, and I needed like is playing into their own main character syndrome,
Yeah.
like and that's what you do. I mean, I get
Yeah.
that, like it makes a lot of sense. He also, of course, talks about his move of making the other side alliance because Bobby asked about it. He said, like, talk about that time you flipped. And Greg's like, well, what do you mean? Because it was after Bobby had been evicted already. And then he's able to spell out the whole other side alliance chat to save his own tail and how that worked out for him. Sarah says her big move was taking John out. Of course, that's one of many, but she's right. And Greg talks more about wanting to be the villain and showing patience and all that, like you've talked about. Oh, one more thing with John. I know we keep coming back to John, and I didn't.
He is kind of the swing vote.
Yeah, it's important. So another thing, Greg starts taking credit for Sarah putting John and Bradley up, like a little bit, like talking about how his relationship was really important in that with Sarah was really important in that round, and like just hints at like Sarah's big move is also kind of my doing a little bit. Like he just kind of like it's subtle, but I caught that. I was like, oh, he's kind of taking credit for Sarah's big
Which
move
is
here.
smart. That's
Yeah, of
part
course.
of the game.
Of course.
The game is still on. These votes are still up in the air. Like when you have a 4-3 vote like this, it is not dictated before this started. This was
Oh,
very alive. This was very active. And I respect the jury for that. I mean, I always do whenever they're very much thinking through what people are saying and trying to discern the correct answer to who is the most deserving winner because both of these players are deserving.
he
But
also
he's smart in playing that and trying to get, trying to undermine a little bit of the game that Sarah played.
He also asks them what their biggest mistakes were, and Greg says he needed a better bond with Bradley, which I think is, I mean, that's playing to John perfectly,
Right.
and
And that's something he does so well with every single juror who comes up, whether they
Yep.
voted for him or not. He makes them feel like they were important to his game, just like that. I don't know if that's just like a mentor thing, if it's a wisdom thing, if it's a pastor thing, but he's very good at it. He's
Yep.
very good at speaking directly to people.
Yeah, and then Sarah says her mistake was should have taken the advice of Bradley and John a bit more at the beginning as it pertained to Max. Yeah, you could like even here it's like she was a little pressed about Max at the end, which is interesting as just this like big threat to win. But whatever, not a big thing. I think Allie is also a very important swing vote here.
Yep. I'm really surprised she votes for Greg as well.
She goes back and forth, like she really was. It was Canadian Thanksgiving as we talked about in the finale, and so she was a little busy. So a lot of it came down to her questions for them, and one of her big questions, I think, and is a great way to end it, was the why should the other person win?
Yeah.
This question I don't see this question asked a lot anymore. I feel like I think
Yeah,
and I think it's a fun question. So I still like this question a lot. And Sarah credits, and this is how you answer this question. You gotta be a little like backhanded complimenty
Mhm.
a little bit with this.
Right.
Sometimes like you can do either. You can be really genuine, and that endears that juror to you for being so nice to the other person. But the risk
Right.
is you're telling them why they should win, or take the backhanded compliment approach. And they both kind of do that a little bit. Sarah does it a little bit more when she says that, she credits Greg for playing a role and how that worked in his favor. And then
Yeah.
Allie's vote, she talks about how she really loved how Greg played that role. So maybe that's a losing statement for her. I don't know. And then Greg said that Sarah paced herself really well, pulled out the compliments when she needed to, and that he was learning a lot about, Sarah's the use of her power in the
Right.
moments that she had it. And yeah, and that wraps up the jury. Anything else from Allie that you picked up on?
No, that's about it. That's about it.
And so then we get to the votes. So Jeff had already voted. He had voted for Sarah because he hated Greg. And Leighton and Bobby, we know they ate it up and they voted for Greg.
Mhm.
Bradley, kind of put all of his emotion aside, looked at things objectively, looked at the game Sarah played, and rewarded it. John voted for Greg out of some spite a little bit, and maybe also some, Greg's game does stand up on its own, and that's part of it too. I don't know
Absolutely.
what went into this vote for John, if it was bitterness or if it was, really assessing both sides. Yeah, I have my idea. Max votes for Sarah, very objective vote because, two people he worked with, Greg and Sarah, in some ways, and had to look at like he said you avoided the block, which she did. She wasn't on the block until Final Four, right? I don't think she's on the block at all until Final Four, which is really impressive.
Yeah,
and Max loves to hear about how you played into the narrative of the game. She explained the Leighton eviction very well to him and gets the vote. Allie then
and what's interesting to me about this, just like I love these little parallels between seasons, whereas we go to Allie's vote wondering if she's going to give Max Parsons the fourth vote to win. And then we're waiting, we're like, I wonder what she's going to do.
Yeah.
Like here, it's really like,
yeah, actually,
wait, what is she going to do?
Like, and you hear me talk about it because I say something like I was getting all the Greg votes in and I thought he was going to run away with it. But then the Sarah votes started rolling in, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this comes down to Allie. And she, I think, really went back and forth a lot. Like, 2 minutes earlier, she sends her vote. Maybe Sarah wins, and that's the difference sometimes. And she goes with Greg, played the role of the villain really well. And Greg pulls out the win 4-3.
Yeah, amazing.
And it's amazing. And I think that we should go straight from this into our winner ranking. So I think that's because
can we do one? Can I say one thing about
sure?
Sarah? Because I've
I don't want to.
Let's editorialize this a little bit.
Yeah.
Given the rewatch of this, Sarah is definitely one of the best players to have never won Big Brother Hometowns. I would definitely add her to my list if she wasn't already on there before. I don't think she was. She is someone that I am dying to have play BBH again.
Right.
After watching her. Like, I really would love to see Leah play again. I don't think that's possible, but Sarah is someone that I definitely could see coming back. I'm dying for it. I want it.
Well, at this point, hopefully you'll see her again soon, like in real life.
Yes. I'm going to bother the crap out of her.
Yeah. Yeah. As you should. But yeah, like what an impressive game. Like I would have loved for her to cut Leighton. Oh no, sorry, cut Greg.
Yeah.
And win that final 3 HOH, cut Bradley, take Leighton to the end, win the game. I would love that. Sarah would be one of our very best winners. Which is funny because Greg is also one of our very best winners, and Bradley would have been one of our very best winners had he sealed the deal. It's just such a strong final 3, and Sarah's game is just so impressive. Plays that middle like an absolute genius, and and jumps back and forth, and no one clocks her for it because they always need her. That's how you play the middle. If you're playing the middle correctly, both sides always need you. Jenny does it well in season 10, and
Yes.
really in season 1. But Sarah does it very well here too. Also could have gotten her the win. It's just it's incredible, and I was very happy for her then. Still very proud of the game she played now. In retrospect, but doesn't get it done, and that's the unfortunate part of the jury. Sometimes is that sometimes just the one person hears the one wrong thing, or the one person is just bitter enough that it turns it against you. But 4-3, it's as close
You
as
still
it's
got
been.
3 votes. I mean,
Yeah.
that's still 3 people who saw you
Yeah.
and who saw what you did.
3 out of
And
the 3 out of the 6, in fairness, because if you lump Bobby and Leighton as one two-headed monster. So yeah, let's then jump into our winner rankings. And I don't know what to do here. Give me your hot take.
It's not that it's a hot take. I don't think I would have made this decision before rewatching the finale. Like last night, I was watching and I was like, okay, I think I know where I'm gonna place Greg on my winner rankings. And then I watched the finale, and that changed this morning, and that changed everything for me. So obviously, Greg, not a better winner than Max Parsons. Not a better win. Sorry, Greg is a better
Is a
winner
better
than
winner
Max
than Max
Parsons.
Parsons.
Is a better winner than Max Teddy. Is a better winner than Connor. And is a better winner than Jenny. For me.
Goodness.
For me. For me. For me.
Oh man.
I have Greg at number 1 on my list for a couple reasons. Jenny played in season 1. To be honest, I think she played a very easy game. Like in that it was not hard for her. Like it was hard because the family stuff, that was one thing. But like in terms of the game, making the moves, the decisions that she ultimately had to make, I don't think it was that hard. I think the field is at a higher level here in season 5 than it was in season 1. Jenny, we gave her a lot of credit for a lot of the control that she exhibited over the game. I think Greg has moments of equal he has higher highs in terms of he has control over the double eviction. He has control over himself, which is something that he did not exhibit in season 2. And yes, Jenny has control, but in just like a more of a her position is secure. Greg, what he does really well here is he does really well at controlling his own perception, other players' own perception of him, in a very intentional way that diminished his threat level and and elevated and was able to make him be viewed as someone who couldn't win the game. But then when they all got to the jury, they were all like, "Oh, Greg is playing really, really well." And I think everybody knew Jenny was playing well. I don't think it was a secret. Um, Jenny beats Allie, who was not good competition. Greg beats Sarah, who is phenomenal competition. I think Greg puts on a clinic here in the final jury questioning. And for me, I think that those things elevate him just higher for me, and what he had to do to get that win was better than what Jenny had to do. Jenny's a fantastic winner. We know this. This is no shade against
Yeah.
her. I think when I sit and evaluate it, that's where I sit right now. And if you disagree, I'm
No,
so excited to hear you.
okay.
I
So
know this is your wife, so you
yeah.
gotta be careful.
She's not gonna listen to this. Oh, it's so hard.
It
It's very difficult. Because it's a slippery slope. Because I think Jenny is a top tier winner, and it may do us more service to do tier ranking of winners than a just straight up ranking. Because I think that they're both in the top tier, and I don't think that's going to change. even if several people
Oh yeah, no, I
are
don't.
in that top tier.
No,
But yeah, to go from the top, not better than or better than Max, better than Max, better than Connor. It's a top 2 for sure. And I think there's two sides. You could say like Greg got himself in trouble a lot of times, but then also got out of said trouble.
he was. When did he? Well, he didn't get himself in trouble.
Well, I mean, he was on the block twice and a vote away from
And
going
that,
home both
but he
times. Well, and let me
sure,
finish. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying you can look at it both ways. You could say he got himself in those two spots where Sarah saved him twice, and you can say that is a bad thing because you were a vote away from going home in two different situations. You can also look at that as a good thing is that you were able to leverage your relationships. You could even say Greg was in trouble 3 times and Sarah saved him every single time. All the way to the final 2. And then Greg pulls out a 1 vote win, which is just, I don't know if that's irony or what that is, but over Sarah, the person that she could have taken out 3 different times. Yeah, that's an interesting.
well, you think about what he had to do to convince her to keep him,
Right.
right? Like those are valid parts of his aspects of his game.
And then you can look at Jenny, who was only really in danger once and also gets out of it. It's not apples to
It's
apples.
very different games. Like that's the thing.
Right.
It is very different games. So you just kind of have to make you got to throw your dart on the board and see where you stand because they didn't play the same game, so it's hard to compare. Like Max and Max play a very similar game, so it's easy to compare them. Connor and Jenny kind of play a similar game in that they have a lot like more control over like what's going on, so that you can kind of rank them and compare them. Greg has a completely different game here in 5 than the 4 people before him. So it's really hard. It is hard to compare.
It's different and it's a little flashier in some regards than Jenny. And so I think what I'm gonna do is go Max Parsons, Max Teddy, Connor Mills, Jenny Gonsalvo, Greg Wells. I think I have to. I think what Greg does in the finale is really great. Yes, he gets himself out of trouble, but these moves he makes are phenomenal. Like the overall journey from like building that engine, being patient,
Yep.
and it paying off in big ways is so impressive. I never would have thought in the beginning of this project that Greg would ever be in the top spot, and he may stay there for a little bit. Really could stay here for a while.
Yeah.
And so
That's
yeah.
wild. It's wild.
Okay, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Let's go to the season rankings. Season rankings.
You go first this time. I want to.
It's better than season 4. It's better than season 3. It's better than season 2. And it's once again a battle between season 1 and season 5. And once again, I think season 5 is better. Because I was watching this last night, especially when you watch it carefully and you're like really pay attention to the storylines. This is such a ride.
Yeah.
It's such a ride. The stories are unbelievable. The highs, like this, everything about it is so entertaining. This is the first time in my BBH watching experience that last night I couldn't stop watching.
Yeah.
I was like, I gotta watch the next episode. I gotta watch the finale. I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And on an entertainment level, which is mainly what this is based off of, it's so good and it's the best season so far. And it goes down to the very end. And season 1 is very good. You have so many good entertaining characters who play the role, and it's such a special season 1. But overall, like I couldn't stop watching. The pre-jury is just so wild and kooky all around a game that's being played like at a fun level, and like the gameplay is really interesting. That continues as the gameplay becomes a little bit more the focus, but you still have really entertaining moments from Greg, from Allie, from Sarah, from Bradley. Like it's phenomenal. And I'm curious what's going to happen when we compare this to season 6.
I know.
But it's the best season right now.
Yeah. I agree with you. I was really torn on this too, because season 1 is special. There's just some magic about it that when you watch it, it's so enjoyable and it's so fun.
I think I have to watch it again just to make sure I believe this.
The gameplay is really great. You have a great winner. You have great storylines through it. And I I have to just when I look at it, I look at season 5 and I say, yeah, same thing plus, you know,
Yeah.
plus. And that's that ultimately for me, it just puts the edge over it. I love season 5. I remember when we did the season rankings podcast about 2 years ago now, and we put I was like the only person who had season 5 like anywhere near the
Oh no, I
front
was
half.
with you because if you
Yeah,
recall,
it was us. We had you're right. It was
Gray
us.
had it really low, and I laid into him.
Yeah, we were like, no, you're wrong. But like neither of us had it above season 1. Neither of us did. And so I think it's very interesting to go back and look at this project and see just like with a more careful eye what you find and what you see and what you enjoy. And yeah, I big fan. Season 5. And I've like low key, I'm shaking my boots a little bit because season 6 has long been like top 1, top 2 spots
Right.
of best seasons for rewatchability. And I'm kind of low key a little nervous going
I
into
know.
it.
All right, so let's jump into our
Oh, I have nothing to add for villain rankings. I think I'm just gonna let it lie as it is because
Well, I think it's interesting to put like season 5 Greg
oh,
versus
okay,
season 2 Greg, but I
okay.
also I have another entry in this
Okay.
villain
Oh,
ranking.
interesting. I'm okay. You're more here for this than I am. I was just gonna let it lie because it's like returning seasons. I only felt like Greg really was like the big villain of it all. But
I think Sarah's kind of a villain. Think about it. Like she turns on people left and right. She puts up John and Bradley only to try and like rekindle with Bradley just to kick him out again. She kicks Leighton out. Like that, like in her jury speeches, she's just like not apologizing for anything. And she's coming for blood left and right. Like she's like unassuming and paranoid, but she's a villain. Tell me I'm wrong.
I don't know. She's a hero to me.
Oh, she may be a hero to your heart, but she is not a hero in fact. She's a villain.
Oh God, I didn't even like. I think maybe like for me, like because I've always viewed her as like attached to Greg. I always viewed her as like the hero
Right.
of that
And
pairing.
she doesn't like
She's
she's
not
not
like
a villain in Confessional
yeah.
by any mean. But
She's
like
not.
the thing she does is kind of villainous. And it's fun and it's great. Like and she like I said, she slays your favorites.
No, you're not wrong. I will say I think okay, so where would you put her? Because I'm looking at I think if I were to put her on this list, I'd probably put her above the list as it stands right now. Greg from season 2 at the top, Leah, Ashton, Gray, Josh Gardner, rest in peace. His game in BBH, he's not dead. But Connor and Max at the bottom. And eventually I'll probably just make this a top 10 because I don't want to do this forever and ever. But
Right.
we only have 7 people on the list. We're gonna add Greg from season 5, which is I think a great idea. And we're gonna add. I'm cool with adding Sarah. I can get on here. I think I would be led to put her above Connor.
Yeah, I think that's a fair spot
because
for
I
it.
don't think she takes enjoyment out of being a villain. She
Right.
just makes villainous decisions.
She just owns her game a whole lot, which is like can be seen like she just doesn't apologize. Like and I think season 5 Greg is a little less villainous than season 2 Greg because season 2 Greg's like going all out. I don't know if that so I think I would go season 2, season 5, and then the rest of the list as we has it.
I'm fine with that. I think they're so similar in the same coin to put them.
And I want him. He deserves the top 2 spots.
No, and he does. No, and you're right. No, and he does. Oh my gosh.
And yeah, that.
So our list. So our list of villain. Let's go through our list of things that we're tracking. Our villain rankings. Our top 10. Greg season 2, number 1. Greg season 5, number 2. Followed by Leah, Ashton, Gray Price, Josh Gardner, Connor Mills, and Max Teddy to round out our top 9. So I'm assuming after season 6, some of these lower tier people gonna get the boot because
you're coming.
I'm coming on the list, baby. No, so is Steven, and and so is Jason.
Yeah, sure.
And what they do to me is wrong, and they
Oh my gosh.
no, I'm just kidding. No, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. So
Yes.
that's that. Our season rankings. Season 5 at the top, followed by chronologically season 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then our winner rankings follow suit with Craig at number 1, Jenny at number 2, Connor at number 3, Max Teddy at number 4, and Max Parsons at number 5. This list's gonna definitely get shaken up. I think everything's gonna like start to mix a little bit as we start
Yep.
to add 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and on and on and on and on. But um, I'm finding it very interesting myself so far through 5 seasons that the season rankings and the winner rankings are aligned. I
Yeah.
find that very interesting because that's not always the case. Like I think about like when Rob Sesternino ranks his winners, the winners of Survivor and the seasons, and like how
Yeah, a
Kim
lot of times
Stradlin
the
is like
best winners are in the most boring seasons.
yeah, exactly. Like because of the way it's edited or whatever. So I find that very interesting in contrast to a project like that. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. Josh, what are your big takeaways through the first 5 seasons of Big Brother Hometowns? Now that we've kind of like fine tooth combed them, and we're
Yeah.
really going to enter into a new era of Big Brother
Yeah, in
Hometowns
some
after
respects, it's
season
like
5.
this, like season 6 through 10 that we're about to go to is kind of like the blended era
Yeah,
where you still have a ton of people that were in this space, seasons 1 through 5, people with the like org mix. The pandemic starts
yeah,
in this, so you get a lot of infiltration before. I would say like you get through like 11 through 15, which is like
org
the
only.
org only, and maybe
Yeah,
even beyond that, up even through till right now. Just a fun first 5 seasons. Season 4 is obviously the worst of them, and we've talked about that, and that's just like an outlier, and that's mainly because of the episodes. It was still fun.
yeah,
Like I'm glad that this experiment is still like living on at this point and building momentum after a great 5th season. I'm glad it ended up being the all returners thing, even though I didn't
yeah,
want it originally. But it like it's just such a special like place in my life, and a special place in the BBH history,
yeah.
where we are at this point. Like we're just getting started of like the things that are being built in the community, and
Truly,
and
yeah,
and in the, and even and that expands beyond just Big Brother hometowns. And I look forward to when we kind of get to that place in history where other things start happening in our space. But
yeah,
this is just a very special time, and like people are playing it in a different kind of way, has a different feel, and it's just a lot of fun, and it's still really solid Big Brother play,
yeah,
with great characters and good stories and really great like winning triumphs and losing heartbreak. Like all of it's here, and it's been a lot of fun going through these first 5 seasons. So I'm glad that we're packaging this together, for you guys to start, or hopefully maybe I've already listened to at this point if you're here. But yeah, what about you?
yeah. It's it's interesting because, like, on a personal note, this is the stuff pre my exposure to Big Brother Hometown. Season 6, is when I burst onto the scene, a bright young star. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. But like, no, this is like for me, this is all the stuff that happens before I become involved in what is Big Brother Hometowns. And like I think what's going to be really fun to see is through season 6 and maybe like the next 4 or 5 seasons, you're really going to start to add a lot of this cast of characters that has become what Big Brother Hometowns is today. Like it sounds silly to say this, but like the first 5 seasons, we don't really see many of those people around the community anymore.
Right.
We have
Outside of
Max and
Max and
Gray
Gray.
and Abby whenever she plays another season,
Yeah.
and but like you don't really see a lot of these people that we've had a really fun time breaking down and talking about. And there's almost like this, like it's silly because it's a silly org and it's just a game. But there's like I personally have a lot of reverence for these people who like went through these first 5 seasons and played what I deem to be a very different type of game to play than
Mhm.
what I had to play and then what people are playing now, as we're gearing up for season 17 at the time of this recording. And, so it's interesting to me to look back with a watchful eye and just find so much enjoyment and joy out of like these people and what they brought for us to view and what they
Yeah,
did, and I just really am thankful for it. I'm excited to move forward and talk about myself and Jason and Sarah Flanagan and Shelby in season 7 and
yeah,
Jayla and all these people in season 8 getting Gray to come back. There's so much more exciting things to look forward to that I'm excited to have wrapped this. I'm excited about moving forward to these group of people that we actually are familiar with.
right.
And I think hopefully we're going to be able to give a lot of context to what happens in season 6 through 10 and really enjoy digging into those further just like we did with seasons 1 through 5.
Yeah,
So
I mean, and one thing you said that I am just like eternally grateful for this batch of players in the first 5 seasons that helped get this thing, going. And now, several years later, we're still just cruising along and just like
yeah.
having so much fun with it. And so, yeah, like that wraps up the first volume of this. Depending on when you consume this, like if you have consumed this shortly after we've recorded, hopefully it won't be too long before the next volume that will have 6 through 10 will be out, or you're consuming this way in the future and it's already out. Go listen to those, depending on where you are. But preview us. I'll let you for season 6.
Okay. Season 6 is so fun. It's just such a fun ride. There's a few returnees, which is exciting to see back. But you really are gonna see some. There's like some really fun characters. Like I am a character, and so is Steven, and Cowboy Marston
Yeah.
burst onto the scene, and because Ryan Marston, who plays season 2, different person from
Yeah.
Cowboy Marston, right? You have like really fun characters in the Moons, and we have Jason, who is an integral part of the season. There's backstabbing, there's drama, there's insanity, there's so much that's good about season 6, and I'm so excited to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. I'm gonna do my absolute best to be unbiased and not talk about myself all the time. But I think no tea, no shade. I'm a big part of that season, and I'm excited to like dig into the things that are happening. And yeah, and Sarah's a great winner.
Yeah.
She's a very deserving winner. She does exactly what she needs to do to get to the end and to win. And so yeah, it's fun. It's fun stuff.
Yeah, I'm really excited about getting into that. I'll save it for then, because there's obviously a lot of good stuff that led up to that season and that happened in the season. So I'm excited to get there. But that wraps up this first 5 seasons, particularly this incredible season, what we're deeming currently the best season of the first 5. Big Brother
Wow.
Hometown season 5. We never last thing. One thing we never touched on was that I did give this season a title of BBH 5 Battle Royale. There was no reason for that. I just wanted to give it a cool title. We never talked about it. It was just surprising. Like I didn't want to call it All Stars because I didn't feel like the cast was All Stars, but they were. So anyway, that's the reason. If you've been wondering this whole time, why is it called that? That's why.
Hashtag Battle Royale.
Yeah.
In your DM if you made it this far.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on Picture This, a Big Brother Hometown retrospective. For Mitchell Stokes, I'm Josh Consalvo. See you later.